It's the Underdogs back with you for the last show of July. I'm Jordan Brenner, joined as always by Peter Keating. Peter, we got a big show today. A little bit later, we're going to dive into some post-trade deadline analysis. But first, we are fully into the Olympics. And as specialists in all things underdogs, what a time for us to be alive.
It's great, Jordan. You always, when we get to that point where Alabama and Dayton and Little Rock are still alive and Giant Killers, they're all in the mix, right? We're at this great moment where we're watching dominance in some events and crazy underdog action in other events and breakouts, right? Breakout sports in yet other events. It's been fantastic. Great week one.
It's fun to sort of suspend your cynicism for 2 weeks and just get super into everything about the Olympics, whether it's sports you don't usually follow or athletes you didn't know a lot about. We live in such a cynical time in all of the world, let alone sports, that to enjoy this like a kid, I think is a treat. And I'm having fun. I'm watching around the clock.
Yeah, last week, Jordan, we are talking about how per capita GDP and infant mortality rates predict Olympic medal counts, right?
Yeah.
And this week we're talking about like Italy managing to win a medal in women's gymnastics and stuff like that. It's great. Yeah, it's absolutely great.
And I feel like the first like feel good moment for Americans was watching the rugby sevens, the women's rugby team. I mean, first of all, how fun was it? It was fun watching everyone fall in love with Alona Mar. It was fun watching the games. And then for this team to medal and to do it on what was essentially the equivalent of like a last second touchdown in football was amazing.
Right. And one of the great things about it is we're learning all the rules on the fly, right? Like they needed to score at the last second and then convert the kick, right? To win that game. And we're all sitting around wondering, wait a minute, why is the kick taking place from that angle when the last kick we saw was from a completely different angle? Does the ball have to touch the ground? Like what's a turnover in rugby, right? What are they doing? What's happening? And you're figuring out what's happening as you're watching this incredible comeback win and sparked by an incredibly determined breakout player. It's like, I mean, all the ingredients are right there. It's fantastic.
I don't want to some people jump to crazy conclusions at events like this. They're like, oh, people are going to start following this sport or that sport outside of the Olympics. And we're clearly not there yet. But I will say that the more I watched the rugby, the more I just enjoyed the game. And, you wonder if, especially we don't have women's professional football at a high level in this country, like maybe 20, 30 years from now, rugby becomes again, not what the NFL is, but maybe it starts to climb into that second or third tier of sports. And
well, I don't know. You don't have to
get,
I mean, yeah, I mean, you don't have to be overly crazy to think that it's going to be a lot shorter than 20 or 30 years. I mean, look, there's action. There's clearly the chance for surges back and forth and comeback wins, right? There's a great player. And one thing the rise of women's sports does over the last 10 or 20 years is show us that if this happens in a women's sport, it can break out, right? Like we've seen in women's basketball, like we've seen in women's soccer. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, if this happened in a women's sport, would it even be on TV, right? Would we even really know about it except if you read the New York Times the next morning? Maybe not. Now it's accessible to everybody. And that's the first step in allowing or generating a big breakout. I think it's coming. I think it's next. Rugby's fun. It's kind of cool. It's not so foreign that it's hard to understand. And again, wait a minute. The players have guts. And there's this fantastic player who is not going to be denied winning a gold medal at the last second. It's a good moment.
Oh, a bronze medal. Let's be fair.
I'm sorry, a bronze medal. I did get ahead of myself after promising I wouldn't. Yes.
There you go. So speaking of breakout sports, Peter, we've identified a few stories that haven't happened yet that are on our underdog watch. So let's start with an entire sport. Can't have a breakout without breaking. That's right. Break dancing, making its debut at the Olympics. This is not a sport that I'm saying is going to break out outside of the Olympics, but every year.
You say break out?
Yes. Every year every Olympics, there's some sport that like captivates fans during that period, whether it's curling or in its infancy, beach volleyball, which has graduated to something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you that breaking, people are going to get into this. And by the way, for no other reason than the fact that this sport has something called a misbehavior button. A misbehavior button, Peter. That's right. Judges may use the misbehavior button to penalize a breaker when they act or gesture inappropriately. There's 3 levels: mild, moderate, or severe. Those range from mild, an accidental, unintentional, or non-aggressive act or gesture, to severe, an intentional act or gesture that is overtly aggressive,
Jordan, I've been
violent,
ringing a misbehavior button while you've been talking. Look,
or
here it is.
sexual in nature.
Here's our misbehavior button. Your explanation was
Yes.
getting too long. I have rung the misbehavior button on you. I can't
But this
believe
is
you talked
amazing,
straight
Peter.
through that. I can't believe you talked straight through that.
You've got B-boys, you've got B-girls, battles are one-on-one called throwdowns. And the best part is they don't even know the music before they start.
That's fantastic. The DJ selects the music. Now, Jordan, can you do a top move for us? The bottom moves, the breaking moves are moves on the floor, right? But the top move, can you do a top move in breaking? You know, like the arm wave. Can you do one of those for us? Come on, give us a top move. You have no break moves? All right.
I refuse to acknowledge your nonsense. But Peter, I'm excited for this. It's going to be ridiculous. It's like these one-on-one dance battles with no one knowing what music's coming, and always the chance that someone's going to gesture sexually and get like penalized with a misbehavior button.
Jordan, do you remember, are you old enough to remember back in the 80s, the old school beginnings of hip hop when there was an international rap tour in the early 80s? That rap tour stopped in Paris. I believe Africa Bambaataa was on it. I think I'm trying to think. I think Grandmaster Melly Mel was on that tour. Stopped in Paris, big show. That spawned the rap and breaking scene in Paris. 40 years later, it's an Olympic sport. It's fantastic.
Well, let's move on from that to another underdog that's well underway. But I think this could be a future nailed it if a couple things break right. And that's the U.S.
Wait, did you just say break again?
That's right. Peter, this was a team I'm hoping that might actually make for a future nailed it, because we talked about them. We wrote about them for The Athletic. It's the U.S. men's soccer team. As we know, soccer is a U23 tournament at the Olympics, with the exception of 3 overage players. We wrote about how this U.S. team actually has a good amount of young talent and could be in the mix for a medal. They hadn't been in the Olympics since 2008. Well, they lost 3-0 to France in a very deceptive opening game where they hit the post twice, but they came back and dominated against New Zealand and Guinea. Now they move into the knockout stage where they face Morocco. They can win that game, and then they'll be in the semis against the winner of Spain, Japan. This team could medal, and it's really fun watching some of this young talent, some of which could be in the mix for the 2026 World Cup here.
Yes. And, you know, where there are ties about advancing, sometimes it depends on goal differential. So that 3-0 loss looked terrible. But like you said, they hit the crossbar on one shot, post on another, and then they overwhelmed their next 2 opponents. So, and Morocco, is Morocco the other lowest rated team among the quarterfinalists? I'm not sure, but this is a very winnable match.
Yep. I mean, you have Egypt in there too, Paraguay, but the Olympics are weird, right? No team outside of South America or Europe has ever won a World Cup, where you have teams like Cameroon and Mexico and others who have won the Olympics. So in general, it's just a different kind of tournament, but it's enjoyable. Speaking of teams in a major sport who we've adopted and love, Peter, we got to talk about South Sudan men's basketball, who's playing in the U.S. today. So by the time you're watching or listening to this, that game will have happened, but they already beat Puerto Rico. We love them. We love them a month ago, even before they played the U.S. to a 1-point game in an exhibition. Everything about this story is great.
Right. From Luol Deng, the coach, to the players.
No. Luol Deng, the president of the federation.
The president of the federation.
Royale Ivy, former backup point guard, is the coach. Yeah.
Right. And the players they have assembled, some from South Sudan, some from around the world. You may know Carlik Jones, right? The point guard who was in the G League Player of the Year before the Bulls released him, who had a fantastic game against the U.S. Look, the U.S. is favored by almost 30 points in this game, but South Sudan's next game is against Serbia, and South Sudan has shot from outside. They've grabbed a lot of rebounds. They're working their butts off. And that game that they threw a scare into against the U.S., they played extraordinarily well. This is a great assemblage. And we should mention the Nigerian women also beat Australia. So this is a pretty damn good Olympics so far for the 2 African teams playing from the whole continent. Those are the 2 teams playing. They both won their first games.
I will say there is only one thing that worries me about South Sudan, and that is they have Mariel Shayok on their team. And do you know where he played college basketball? That's
They have
right,
a
Virginia. So as
but
we know,
they have a say they have that 17-year-old commit to Duke too. So there you go. It'll maybe balance out a
oh
little bit.
yeah, oh we're gonna talk a lot about come on, I'll walk
There's
next
going to be
winter.
a
You
little
you
over
be
under
ready.
performance in there. Yeah.
All right, Peter, hit us quick with a couple other underdogs that you like going into the second week of the Olympics before
All
we
right. Absolutely
baseball.
keep your eye on Thea LaFond in the women's triple jump. She's the she's been getting better and better. She's been in the last 3 Olympics. She's from Dominica. That's not the Dominican Republic. It's the little island next to the Dominican Republic, which has never won an Olympic medal. And look, I don't care if you're second best in the world or whatever you are. If your country's never won an Olympic medal before, you're an underdog in our books, okay? And the world champion, the dominant queen of the triple jump, tore her Achilles this spring. So there's a great chance for Thea LaFond. She's plus 400 right now on DraftKings to win the triple jump. If she does, if she even medals, it'll be Dominica's first medal. That's a cool story. I also need to bring up Jordan competing next week. Watch for it. Count them, 3 wrestlers who left Russia, recruited by the Albanian Wrestling Federation president, who is taunting Russia, pokes a stick in their eye, says this is a theft from the Russian Federation. Is there religion involved? Are there politics involved? You know, Albania's part Muslim, open country. Russia has been involved in a war against Chechnyan separatists. 2 of these guys are Chechnyan. There's all kinds of crazy political tensions involved in this. But the point is, Albania has never won a medal in the Olympics. Now they have 3 guys who could give them a shot. Zalmkan Abakarov, Islam Dudayev, and Sherman Valiev. Abakarov's plus 600.
Say that 3 times fast.
Oh, I will. Bakarov's plus 600, Valiev's plus 800. Win a medal. It's Albania's first chance to take home a medal. And it's just kind of tasty that they stole these guys from a country that's 150 times as big as they are. So they are cool underdogs, giving the country a chance to win a first medal. Albanian wrestlers.
Got it. Well, we hope you're enjoying the Olympics as much as we are. We'd like to hear from you. What are your favorite underdog stories of the Olympics so far? Hit us up on X. You may know it as Twitter, at Jordan Brenner, at Peter Keating NJ, like New Jersey, not Michael Jordan. And we'll be back with some trade deadline thoughts in baseball right after this.
And Jordan, that's breaking. So that's a wrap.
We're back. And Peter, the MLB trade deadline came and went yesterday at 6 p.m. I think about 794 players were traded in total. I think if you weren't traded, you are now deemed a loser. But here's the thing. In all honesty, I think we agree on this. It was a busy trade deadline. It was fun seeing deals flash across the screen, but it felt like very few were significant.
Very little high impact, kind of disappointing, because I think there are some teams who would substantially improve their playoff chances with just 2 or 3 extra wins that kind of didn't go for it as buyers, while plenty of teams sold off spare parts. And the teams that got them were just like, I guess, trying to catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, Justin Turner, what is Justin Turner going to bring? So there's very little hot action of impact players for high-level prospects like we may have, we've seen in years past.
So I'll say this, and I think you and I were on this like a month ago, which is that this was an extreme seller's market. I don't think I've seen a deadline that was tilted this far towards selling, because as we've talked about, the playoffs have become a crapshoot. Anyone who has a chance at making the playoffs now can convince themselves that they can get lucky and make a playoff run in a low sample size postseason. But what I think that tells me is that the teams that made the commitment to sell were the smart teams.
Yeah, although Jordan, is also something going on where teams are just not giving away their top 5 or even top 10 prospects for rentals anymore, which means that you're getting low-level prospects involved in coming back in these sell-offs. So I think you're right about that, but I'm not sure that it means that.
Oh, I don't know. Some of these returns that what Houston gave up for Kikuchi.
Oh, well, that's just a terrible trade. That's just a terrible trade.
San Diego sold the farm again. Baltimore gave up legit prospects. There were a lot of teams moving good prospects in this. And that's why I wanted to jump in really quick with an under the radar loser of the trade deadline first. And I want to hear who you think might be an underdog winner. But my loser is the San Francisco Giants. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's why. Okay. We knew who the main sellers were. Okay. They were few and far between, but we knew Miami and Washington and Oakland and the White Sox and
Right.
Tampa were looking to pair things off. Okay. The Giants are sitting at 53 and 56, and they could talk themselves into competing for a wild card. But the problem is they're competing for 3 spots with the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Reds, the Braves, the Mets. Okay. I don't know what those odds are, but they're not good. They've been treading water for so long. They missed out on all their big free agent targets. They signed other guys for not essentially, you know, eh, not game changers. Okay. But I thought they should have dove in full bore as sellers. And other than moving Soler, I don't think they did it. They could have taken advantage of this desperation among so many teams to add a bat, to add a reliever. They should have traded Blake Snell and they could have reinvigorated that organization with prospects just based on what we saw going elsewhere. And instead, they're what? They're hanging into hope that they might beat out a whole bunch of teams that are better than them for the 3rd wild card spot. How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the competition, Jordan. It's that they have been racked by injuries, so they could have also just bolstered their depth, right? They have Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray coming back, right? And the talk was
Well, they
that
just traded Cobb, right?
they had them
yeah.
coming back. So the
Yeah,
talk was,
sorry.
would there be a log jam in the Giants starting rotation? So who did they trade Cobb to? They traded Cobb to Cleveland, a contending team that makes smart deals that desperately needs starting pitching. Well, why? Because the Giants have ever been running a surplus on anything? Like, just bolster the depth, bring back anything, bring back bodies. They traded away a guy who a really good team thinks they can make something of, and they traded away Soler. Well, I mean, I don't really get what they're doing. I think
No,
they're
I think they
standing.
should have gone all in on selling. Peter, what did you actually like? What's an under the radar underdog series of moves, teams that emerged from this
I
deadline?
was impressed that Baltimore was able to acquire both Zach Eflin and Trevor Rogers. I know that Trevor Rogers has not been having a good year, but I like teams who look at talent and say, what we have going on can make that talent work. Tampa Bay is obviously like that. Baltimore's now like that too. Trevor Rogers still strikes people out and still has a really high ground ball rate. That's enough for Baltimore to say he's good enough for our rotation. They're a really complete team that got better in the starting rotation. Eflin too. I'll tell you one other thing. This is a staggering statistic. I know Yankees fans are not happy, but Jordan, this thing about them being a 2-man team is not a joke. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto together, okay? So you can just look this up on Fangraphs right now. Have generated 112 runs above average on offense. The team as a whole has generated 82 runs above average. The rest of the team is so far below even average. They're just bringing in an average bat. If all Jazz Chisholm is an average bat, they improved. Could they have done more? I think he's actually going to be a big difference. I'll tell you something else. Mark Leiter's FIP is 2 runs below his ERA. I think those are 2 outstanding, not just average, outstanding acquisitions by the Yankees. They just need everyone, just regress a little bit upward and they'll be fine.
Right. What about the Padres? I mean, they are behaving in a way that no other organization does with the way they just basically
Right.
draft prospects to trade them. I saw something on MLB Network that the number of players that they've actually drafted who are still on the team is phenomenally low. Do you like what they're doing? Are they close enough to be going for it this heavily? What did you
I
think
think
of?
they're close enough. It's an underreported story so far how well Xander Bogaerts has been doing since he came back from injury and out all year. And now he's playing great again, playing like 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, we're going to have to see if it works. They got to win something sometime. Like last year was terribly unlucky, but it's also a tough year to write off because some of their best players moved on, right? So I mean, the proof is in the pudding, like no one else for this team, because they treat all of their prospects like they're just fungible, almost like they're cash, right? So yeah, I think they're close enough to go for it, but they got to do it one of these years.
Right. I mean, look, the market still has them at plus 3,000 to win the World Series, below the likes of Houston's at plus 1,500. The Twins are plus 1,600. The Brewers plus 2,000.
Look, you and I know, like I've been reading people saying that the moves this week made Philadelphia and Baltimore, whoever, like better World Series contenders. I mean, unless you got a top 1 or 2 starting pitcher or a top power hitter, nothing really improves your chances to win the World Series and all these moves. Padres have to just get into the playoffs.
Well, you don't think the Padres essentially going, we're going to build a dominant back end of the bullpen is something that plays in October?
Yeah, it plays. It plays if you have a holes in the back of the bullpen, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. None of these moves guarantee anybody anything, and they're lower impact than usual. That's what I think.
Right. Anybody else catch your eye in our remaining time here?
I like, this is going to sound so ridiculous, but I like what the Mets have been doing. The Mets have been following a blueprint that you and I would put together for any team to move up from the 75 win level to the 85 win level and have as good a chance as anybody. They rebuilt their bullpen before the trade deadline, well before the trade deadline. They got a DH, which is a big hole to fill. They finally got rid of their backup catcher who couldn't throw anybody out, got a backup catcher who can hit. So all along the line, they're improving a little bit above replacement level where they had huge holes. And Paul Blackburn is a number 5 starter. The Mets have 3 good starters. They actually needed to go out and acquire. They had trouble developing a number 4 and 5 starter. They got that in Paul Blackburn.
Right. Well, and I can't let this segment end without mentioning our adopted Kansas City Royals, who went out and bolstered the bullpen. They are tied with the Twins for second place. They are a playoff team if the playoffs were to start today. So we will continue our love.
And the Reds, by the way, the Reds did nothing. Our other favorite team. What happened? I would have liked to see more there.
Well, the hope there is that, again, got players returning from injuries, from other situations, some regression hopefully coming, and they actually sold off a couple pieces that they didn't really need. So you hope that you're dipping into the seller's market to get reinforcements. And for them, it's just like, we should, we don't need Frankie Montas. We have enough young pitching talent that if they perform, we're a playoff team. But
if
Peter,
they perform, yep.
Now it's time, before we go, to once again bring you the under of the week, brought to you by DraftKings. Dive into all the action with our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Underdogs only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Peter, hit us with an under.
I hate to do this because, the best time to pick an under is when something's so high that everybody's buying into an over. So we have to go this week with somebody who everybody loves, Shohei Ohtani. Right now, the over-under on his home run total for the season is 45.5. I'm going to take the under on that. He has been performing phenomenally well over the past couple of weeks. That's why this number is so high. He's been hitting over 400 since he moved into the leadoff spot with power. But Jordan, 3 things. 1, he's getting extra at-bats because he is batting leadoff. Mookie Betts is coming back soon. He's going to be moved back. He'll drive in more runs, but he's not going to get 5 plate appearances a game every game the way he's been doing. He might also rest a couple of games if the Dodgers get close to clinching. And with Betts back right now, he's been carrying the load everywhere, every game. Shohei has always been a better first half hitter, hitting 286 with 134 home runs in the first half of the season over his career versus 270 with 64 home runs in the second half. Also, his home runs per fly ball are super high. They're always super high, but they're unsustainably high right now. If he regresses just a little bit on home runs per fly ball, on plate appearances per game, on batting average on balls in play, just to Superman levels, okay? He's going to miss that target by a little bit. Take the under at 45.5.
That's interesting. And what's fun about this is the Dodgers have played 108 games, which means even I can do the math projecting how many. So he's got 32 home runs. The team's played 108 games, so that would put him on pace for 48. That's why you're probably getting plus money at this at plus 105. So we're saying he just has to fall off his current pace just a little bit, right? We need,
right. He's at the top. He's at the top of his game right now. If he tweaks an ankle for 48 hours, that takes him off the pace. It hasn't happened yet this year. Good for him, but it's as good as it gets for him right now.
All right. So we're saying he just can't hit 12 home runs over his final 54 games.
And we love Shohei Ohtani, right? I mean, I don't want people, this is not a bet against him. It's a bet against him establishing a career high.
Excuse me, not 12 home runs. What's he at? 32 right now? He can't hit
14
Jordan,
we don't have time for you to sit around and correct your own math. I don't know. I mean, come on.
Look, someone's got to correct me, and maybe it'll be our audience. We'd love to hear from you. Jump in about the Olympics. Jump in about the trade deadline. Jump in about Peter's non-functioning misbehavior button, and we'll see you next week.
No, nobody heard that? Well, here it is.